Quick presentation about me. I'm Paolo Di Tommaso, software engineer, computer scientist. I'm a creator, maintainer Nextflow project, and now I'm CTO of Secure Labs. That is the company I co-founded with Evan Floden to further develop this technology and to take care also the ecosystem application around Nextflow. And that's it. So, quick introduction on Nextflow. For sure, most of you know very well. Actually, the technology was introduced at BOSC in 2015, so there is a special relationship with this community. In any case, the main principle, the main pillar of Nextflow technology is to allow people to write computational pipelines in a composable manner and to allow workflow developer to easily integrate any existing script and tools into the pipeline script, just embedding the scripting that you want to run your task. The main idea is to not require to wrap each task with an extra layer. We want to have direct access to the command that you want to run directly into your workflows. And then to have a declarative parallelization model that is really the secret sauce of this technology, because have high-level declararization model for the parallelization of the pipeline using the data flow programming paradigm, in which basically is a model in which the data drive the execution of your pipeline and also the parallelization of your task. You just need to define the dependency between the tasks, and the runtime takes care to spin multiple execution of the task as there is data that is provided to the pipeline itself. And then also an important component is the possibility to isolate task dependencies with containers. This was one of the most fortunate, lucky idea into the project. Maybe was first one, I would even say was Nextflow envisioning this possibility. And this was really the key to make pipeline portable and reproducible across different platforms, because Nextflow.
Paolo, could you pause for a second? Are you sharing your slides? Because
oh my God.
Slides. Yes.
Now you can see it?
No, hold on 1 second.
No? Okay, so I need to share the screen.
There you go.
There we go, sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
Welcome. Much better than seeing my face. Okay, so we were saying containerization, the core idea is to allow to run each single task with a Docker container. This allows to separate, isolate all dependencies into your pipeline to enable reproducible and portable execution across different platforms. And finally, the ability to have pipeline implemented in a agnostic manner, meaning that Nextflow provides a layer that allows to isolate the pipeline code from the execution platform that there is behind the scene. This allows you to run your pipeline on a local computer, maybe HPC, batch scheduler, the usual ones are Green Engine or many of these, this family, or even the cloud. Also, there are many cloud platforms supported by Nextflow, and this is really the key to make it possible to deploy multiple organizations without having to change the code in your pipeline. But okay, let's move into something new. How the project is evolving, new feature which we are working. And one thing we were talking about container, there is also recently has been added the support for Charlie Cloud. This has contributed by the community, and it is a runtime for container specialized for some HPC environment. So this is important because it means bringing the possibility to deploy an Nextflow pipeline, more organization, more HPC data center without having to modify your code. Another interesting feature that has been added recently is this ability that we call stub run, is a way to simulate the task execution using a kind of virtual task. But in practical terms, means associated to each task in your workflow, a virtual task that mimic the execution of the real task, and you can enable this mode to simulate the overall execution without running the real task. This is useful for fast prototyping the pipeline, to validate the model and the logic of the pipeline, also to validate some complex cloud deployment. Because in this environment, there is usually a lot of permission to be set up, a lot of settings. It can be difficult to iterate and try with real data, with real the real pipeline. Instead, enable this option, you can execute fake execution of the pipeline just for validation purpose to verify all permissions are set, containers are available, etc. Then also this year has been added support for Azure batch. This means that now Nextflow has built-in support for all major cloud providers: Amazon, batch, Google Life Science, and Azure, AWS. I made a mistake, I said Azure before. And also I would like to mention this is a feature that has been contributed to Nextflow by Microsoft. So this is very important. So this means that the tool that exists and continues to grow, and there is continuing to have support in this technology. Finally, DSL2, okay, this has been introduced past year, but just like to mention because was a very important evolution of the language. And in a practical term, as we already mentioned before, is a way that allows the Nextflow developer to write library of tasks, a sub-workflow that can be shared across different pipelines. And just to give a very brief example, the syntax is evolution. I mean, it's not breaking what you know already, is continue to use all the principle and data flow programming language. The only difference when you declare a task is that you don't have to define anymore the link with the channel. So in this way, this task become independent unit that can be shared across different modules. In this case, for example, it is included in this other module, this other unit. We are included the quantification step from this file, and then we are reusing to another sub-workflow component that itself can be a separate piece that can be executed independently. And okay, but let's instead focus more on what is going to evolve Nextflow. I want to highlight more into this presentation about what we are working the last months about the plugin system into Nextflow. It basically is a major refactoring Nextflow code base to implement to bring support for a plugin system that allows ourselves, but also third party to provide external components that can be plugged into the core runtime. So nowadays, all Nextflow non-core functionality are being re-implemented as plugin components, like for example, the support for the cloud or the support for Global Alliance API, the Nextflow console, UI, and so on are separate components. So the idea is to keep a linear runtime, and from where other components can be plugged to provide new functionality, and plugins allow to provide support for executors, so the platform which pipeline tasks are run. Also to implement or to audit the events, so the workflow, the task, the metrics, and also the possibility to add to Nextflow new data sources, eventually data format. This is not finalized yet, but this is something in which we are working right now to bring the ability also to create custom operator that can be used into Nextflow pipelines. Okay, this is a very basic design to give some ideas. The plugin must be defined, has to be defined into the Nextflow configuration file, into this new scope in which you declare the plugins that you want to use into your pipeline, plugin name and the version, and the usual Nextflow configuration. Nextflow uses this information to look for the plugin into a plugin index. So this is basically a JSON file publishing to this repo. And here there is the reference, the other checksum metadata to the actual storage archive of the plugin from where are downloaded and installed into the Nextflow runtime. So why we think this is important for the community? Because the idea is to open the Nextflow runtime, Nextflow to a community-driven ecosystem of extension, and give everybody the ability to write new component, new functionality for Nextflow, so that we can add new the support for new platform, new data formats and provider, and accommodate more complex need for the resulting pipeline. And to give you an idea of the possibility of the plugin system, what I want to show you today is a plugin which we are working right now. It is not yet available, but it is available into separate branch into Nextflow main repository, and then implement basically support for SQL databases into Nextflow. Without this plugin, it's not very easy to use external database into a Nextflow pipeline. Actually, the main idea was to avoid that, at least in the core functionality, because the idea of Nextflow is to give a to implement pipeline to some extent in a serverless manner without state. So just download and run, but still there are a lot of use cases. There was a lot of demand to have the ability to access an external database to query and fetch metadata, data, and to be used as an input into the pipeline execution. So the idea, the most common use case why you may need to use this plugin just to query database to fetch some data. The metadata can represent sample sheet in your pipeline that you use to as an input for your pipeline execution. Here, basically, this could represent database table in which there are some columns, the usual sample name, the file path location for the read that you want to use in the data and the pipeline, then some metadata that can also be used into the pipeline execution or can be used to query a post some constraint into the data set. How to use this table, hypothetical table, DB table into Nextflow pipelines. This plugins what allows you to just write a SQL query. These are an ideal, at least in the basic form. It's very easy to understand to everybody. Just a select from the table, which the select and you specify the column that you want to extract from that table. And you can even specify some constraint that can be parameterized. We're using the traditional Nextflow parameter. And that is nothing more than a multi-line string, but how we can use this? We can use this SQL query. The plugin provides the ability to extend the channel factory with a new scope that is SQL, which implements this method that's from query that is the one doing the magic. The magic is running this query, connect to the database, fetch the data, and map, transform the database result into a Nextflow native channel data structure. So the result will be a channel, like another channel into a Nextflow pipeline that can be used into your task execution and trigger the execution of your pipeline and your task. This is the core idea. Maybe it can be interesting to mention how we specify, okay, where is the concrete database? These properties specify the information on the database that I want to connect, and like anything else, I can specify the database coordinating using this new configuration option, the data sources. Here you can define one or more databases that you can connect your pipeline. And then here there are the usual information, that is the location, the URI of the database. This is localhost, but of course can be remote host, and the usual information like username and password to access the database store. And okay, this is the main idea of this plugin. This is going to support in the first version the most popular open source databases that are MySQL, Postgre, MariaDB. There is also going to be support for a local embedded database that can be useful when running this plugin into a local test environment for prototyping without having to use a remote SQL server. Okay, this concludes my presentation. So the main point, next release or Nextflow is going to have the ability to use to embed this SQL plugin that brings the ability to interact, having your pipeline interact with SQL databases. Initially, we give the ability to extract data from the databases. But in a second iteration, we want to also make it possible to have Nextflow writing, Nextflow pipelines writing into SQL databases, so both read and write. And finally, the plugin system allows to the community or third party, everybody to plug new functionality to Nextflow runtime as to support new platform, events observer, data provider, and soon also custom operator. This is a part that is not yet finished. There's a link to the documentation if you're interested. And so thanks you for watching. Sorry for the mistake at the beginning. And I also want to take the opportunity to say a big thanks to Francesco Strozzi and Raul Bonan that was contribute a lot of the idea. It is about the SQL database plugin. We have a lot of discussion in this regard. So thanks for their contribution. And thanks to the organization for giving the possibility for this live presentation. Thanks.